explain what we're talking about when we refer to pro-democracy protesters in Hong Kong. Their central demand is one person, one vote, or universal suffrage when it comes to electing Hong Kong's leader, the chief executive. That means not only the right to vote, but also the right for anyone to run. They argue that it is outlined in Hong Kong's basic law, which protects its status as a special administrative region. But the law provides no definite timetable, and today, the promise of universal suffrage is unfulfilled. In 2014, that's when we saw those mass protests known as the Umbrella Movement demanding an open election in 2017. But to this day, the chief executive is still chosen by a committee of 1,200 people made up mostly of Beijing loyalists. Joining me now is James To. He is the most senior member of Hong Kong's legislature. In fact, he co-founded the United Democrats of Hong Kong, which later turned into the Democratic Party. And James joins us now live. James, thank you for joining us. Let's talk about tomorrow, because all eyes on Wednesday, more protests, even major strike action being planned. What are we going to see? Will we see Hong Kong grind to a halt again?
Well, I think that's a possibility because it seems that Hong Kong people are launching a systematic and full-scale uncooperative movement towards the government and the whole system. Hong Kong people are very furious because our chief executive just ignore people's voice, despite the peaceful rally of 1 million Hong Kong people. I think what we can do is to mobilize and start a very important second strike movement so that the people's voice can be heard.
Got it. You said Hong Kong people are furious. There is widespread opposition to the extradition bill. What more can you do, in addition to just calling for another protest? Is there a strategy to force the government's hand when the government says it's not going to budge?
Well, first, I think we must mobilize the international community because Hong Kong was promised by the Chinese government that we can have the high degree of autonomy, the genuine rule of law, and the democracy. But those promises are not fulfilled. So the international community is right to insist the Chinese government to fulfill their promise. Secondly, Hong Kong people will, on our own, to fight very hard for those values and to preserve our freedom. People will march out again and again and will launch a full-scale and cooperative movement. Well, now you heard even about hundreds of schools starting the uncooperative movement, refuse learning in the next few days. And many people start their own campaign against the government. A number of people will participate in the strike tomorrow. Students not going to school, small business owners not opening up their businesses. Let's talk more about the international appeal part of what you just said. I know that last month that you were part of a delegation of pro-democracy lawmakers from Hong Kong. You went to Washington, D.C. You met with the U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi there. You asked the U.S. government for help. Why? What do you expect the United States to do? Well, Hong Kong is an international city. It's part of China. But China has promised to the world that Hong Kong should remain a free port, a free city, with the rule of law, with democracy and freedom. But now it's only 20 years that those freedoms are washed away. The rule of law undermined. So the international community, including U.S. government, has every right to insist the Chinese government to fulfill their promise.